We are very grateful to our sponsor this evening. More Able Than This is sponsored by the Music Department at Georgia College and State University. In addition to bachelor's degrees in music and in music therapy, including a BA plus MAT path to initial music teacher certification, GCSU offers an online master's degree in music education for certified teachers seeking to improve or expand their knowledge and skills, as well as a hybrid Master of Arts in Teaching degree for those seeking initial teacher certification in Georgia. We accept certified and licensed teachers from across the U.S., and Georgia certification is reciprocal with most other states. So don't let state boundaries deter you from applying. Apply now to start in spring or summer 2025. For more information about these degree programs, contact me at tina.holmes-davis@gcsu.edu. That's tina.holmes-davis@gcsu.edu. More Able Than This is sponsored by the Music Department at Georgia College and State University, Georgia's designated public liberal arts university. Today, we'll be talking about community-based music therapy opportunities with our special guest, Mr. Jay Warren. Jay Warren is a music therapist who primarily serves adults with intellectual developmental disabilities in Milledgeville, Georgia. He got his Bachelor of Science in Music Ministry at Atlanta Christian College in 2006 and earned a master's degree in music therapy at Georgia College and State University in 2020. Jay has many roles at Baldwin's Life Enrichment Center, including activity director, music therapist, and developmental disabilities professional. He also runs the music therapy clinic and trains future music therapists, and runs super cool community music therapy concerts twice a year. Finally, Jay builds I skipped one. He is a past president of the Music Therapy Association of Georgia's executive board. And finally, Jay builds custom MIDI instruments so that people of all ability levels can make music in ways that work for them. Hi.
Hi. Good to see you.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the mouth today.
It's okay. We have those.
So is there anything that you just thought was super vital for you to say, to make sure that you say, as regards to our podcast and your work with the Life Enrichment Center?
Goodness, vital is such a powerful word, isn't it? I'd like to say thank you. It's always great to be able to speak about the work that I do, the people that I get to work with, because I work with some wonderful musicians, and in our local community, they might be known. But of course, outside of our local community, it's hard for them to be showcased. And so
Sure.
Opportunities to speak about the absolutely wonderful people I get to work with, I'll always jump on those. So thank you so much. And thanks for being a voice for folks like that, because very many people are out there feeling voiceless and they need you. So thank you.
And I couldn't sleep at night if I made a path for myself and didn't make a path for other people who, like you said, who don't have a voice. Mm-hmm. So, all right, well, we're intellectually disabled adults, your population of preference while you were studying to be a music therapist.
Yes, they were a part of it. I actually didn't plan on going directly into music therapy at any existing programs. I was working to start a private practice. And so I was going to go back to where my wife and I lived, where I worked in Peachtree City, Georgia. I was working as a minister in that area, and then within pastoral care and counseling. And so my plan was to just go back home after I finished and to open up a private practice with music therapy and pastoral counseling, and then to marry those two concepts into something pretty unique and interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that didn't end up being my story. There was a need here in Milledgeville at the Life Enrichment Center for somebody with a, how do I put it nicely, somebody older who could come on board, provide leadership, and because I had a lot of leadership in the church world, in the nonprofit world, and they are very parallel in many ways. And so the executive director, Barbara Coleman of the Life Enrichment Center, asked if I would stick around a little bit longer and help them with some activity planning and things like that as I was wrapping up my program and wrapping up my internship.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, you know what? I drive to Peachtree City twice a week on the weekends, and my kids miss me, or my at the time it was one child, my daughter Mackenzie missed me, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll think about it." And then one evening, my kid looked at me and she goes, "Dad, I really miss you."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "You know what? I miss you too." And
Yeah.
my family lived here in Milledgeville for the duration of my master's program, and so I just never saw them
Mm.
because I was running on the road all the time. So
Sure.
I called up the church and said, you know what, guys, I love you, but I'm gonna miss you,
Yeah.
and set up shop down here, and I've been here for the past 5 years, almost.
Wow. Yeah.
Hmm.
I remember when the twins were little, of course, Jay's been a high school band director. That's kind of his calling. My Jay, sorry.
That's
But
cool. I didn't know his name was Jay, and he's a band director. I
yeah.
like him a lot already.
Yeah, so Jonah, especially when they were about 2 or 3, used to go to the front window in the house and get behind the blinds and go, "Where go Daddy?" Because, high school band director, an inexperienced high school band director, so he was gone all day and then into all night for rehearsals and
Right.
competitions and stuff. He's much better as he's, done more with it at managing his time and, being home for dinner every night now.
Hmm.
But yeah, he went into middle school for a year and then he went to a private school that ended up having him build a marching band. So we built right back into the same problem.
Oh goodness,
But he
those
tried.
marching band hours are rough.
Yeah. Not so much now. Like I said, he's gotten more efficient and his rehearsals have gotten a little shorter and we live a little closer to his school than we did at that time, so he gets home faster. So you actually answered my second little question in the first, which was how did you settle at the Life Enrichment Center? So, yay.
Yes.
So how do you personally feel that you are nurtured or you benefit from being a music therapist?
Oh goodness. There's a lot of self-discovery as a musician when you go into advanced training,
Mhm.
whether that's in music education, whether that's as a performer, um, well, as a therapist, or in any number of our various specialized skills, composers or arrangers or whatever you happen to be, ethnomusicologists. I'll use that because I met one of those recently, and they're wonderful humans. Um,
I
but
wanted to.
as I, yes, that's a sidetrack. I'll wander down those trails. I know your time is limited, so I'll try to stay focused. Um, yeah, becoming a music therapist allowed me to see in myself where I valued what I was producing, how I was using what I was producing, and to better understand the effect of what I was creating and what that effect was on myself and the people that heard what I was making.
Mhm.
So yes, we as performers, we see our audience, we connect with them, and we kind of get how to pull on their heartstrings either through lyric or arrangement. But to really dig deeper into that, to understand the psychological effects, to see the brain scans, to understand the real depth of that impact and how it can be used
Mhm.
to accomplish, 15 million different things, allowed me to really gain more insight into how music was affecting me and how producing music was affecting me as well. And so yeah, I've gained a lot of insight, a lot more grace that I can now shed for myself that I normally would not have. We all have those sort of performance needs and those
Sure.
perfection needs that we try to attain, that they're either innate or they're drilled into us through our trainers or our mentors. But being able to understand more of that for myself, it has been a very beneficial experience,
Good.
because I have a lot more peace now.
Outstanding. Yeah. Well, and you try to share that, I think, with others.
Mhm.
A lot of, not necessarily with intellectual disability sometimes, but a lot of other areas that music therapists might work in is more medical, and you might
Mhm.
be, doing hospice care or, something where peace is the goal.
Oh, absolutely. And we do see it in my subsection of the music therapy world, and folks with IDD, because like everyone else in this world, we have people in our lives and we have people that we lose, and we have to survive those people. And I'm stepping into that world. Even this month, we started a new bereavement group and trying to
Oh, yeah.
figure out how we can use music and shared experiences to process their grief and loss and to
Mhm.
find our new normals. Has been very powerful. In the hospital, of course, you say medical settings. There are some absolutely heartbreaking experiences. There's some joyful and joyous experiences as well, but music therapists find themselves in the middle of all of those extremes of emotional range, because you do see people at their lowest moments, you see people at their highest sense of victory, and everywhere in between when they're in the hospital. But what you absolutely will see of a person when you're there is who they really are.
Sure.
Um, and in that moment, if you have an ally who can help speak the language of your heart, and music often does that, in a music therapist, then it will really provide some great resilience and opportunities for you to make it through the other end of it with your heart intact.
Outstanding. Yeah. So, yes, that is wonderful. And or you may not know, but when I was in Shepherd Center for my brain injury, I had a music therapist in addition to all the other therapists. And I think that particular therapist was actually an education person who was hired to do therapy, so they were doing a
Wow,
great job. But yeah, but they did work with me and we had a lot of fun.
that's great.
So, yeah, so one of the things I've been kind of championing, I don't know how to say that word,
Championing,
yeah,
champion four.
is, for teachers who may find music teachers who may find themselves completely out of depth with students, especially those with disability, and they don't want them to not do music, but they really just don't know where or how to work with them.
Oh, I
Um,
have been there.
uh-huh.
I was that teacher for a brief period of time. I won't say how long or how far back in history it was. I was lucky enough, and I will say I was lucky enough to be in the classroom as a band director. Um, and during that time, I had a student who was just dropped in my class 3 weeks after school started, from the administration that said, "Hey, here's this kid. Um, they've got a clarinet. Their mom gave it to them, and they want to play it." I
Mhm.
went, okay. And I had no idea. I'm just thinking rosters. Here's the name. Okay, kid comes in and has no communication skills,
Mhm.
very low insight, very slow processing, and I had no training in special needs at all at that point, and I was much younger than I am now. And so I'm looking at this kid going, what am I supposed to do here? Because even the basic functions of how to put the instrument together are outside of this person's lived experience or seem to be outside of their capabilities. I just didn't have a clue.
Sure.
um, I wish I'd had resources at the time, but it was a small private school. You don't have resources like that. And much less, in the days of earlier internet, when you didn't have as much access to therapeutic understanding or resources in that regard either. I failed to meet the needs of the student, and I think about that kid every day.
We all
um,
have that kid, yeah.
yeah, and because in that case, it's not that I wasn't able to capably handle it. Now I know I can, but at
Mm,
the time I wasn't able to do it.
sure.
I didn't have the skills, and I didn't know how to find them, and I just could not perform what that kid needed to become the musician that they might have become.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that can be a very disabling sense as
Sure.
an educator when you're
Yes.
faced against those sort of brick wall experiences. But they can also teach you a lot of things. So, from my perspective now as a music therapist, yes, if you're running into that circumstance, there are resources, there are people, and they're even allowed in your schools. Music therapists they are in most major cities,
Sure.
and you can find them. And schools understand what we do. They've seen us before most of the time. And
Yeah.
if not, it's a great advocacy opportunity for a wonderful field. But music educators and music therapists are both equally accepted in school systems, and so you
Mhm.
can reach out, and your school might be interested in performing a contract with a music therapist. You can come in and help your band directors and choir directors figure out what to do in these circumstances to equip people. All you got to do is find your allies,
And
and
how could
we're good
we,
at that.
how could just the general music educator locate, our local music therapist if we don't live in Athens or Milledgeville, where we
Right.
have to go for
How
them?
do you find out? Well, that's where my advocacy life is here in Georgia. I was the president of our Music Therapy Association for the past 2 years. I just transitioned over to Dr. Katie Whipple from GCSU, who is now taken that mantle and is going to carry it forward, and I'm supporting her. We have state organizations in most states. In Georgia, it's the Music Therapy Association of Georgia. You can hop on our website, and we keep a running roster of music therapists in the state where they're at, and you can get in contact to them with them through that. But even more accessible than that, our national organization, the American Music Therapy Association, the AMTA, keeps a
Mhm.
running roster of all registered music therapists, and you can call and ask, hey, I live in fill in the blank town. I really need a music therapist. Who's around and who do I get in touch with? And we do actually talk to one another and we'll make referrals and we can do it. Or if you happen to know a music therapist or even me, look me up, find me at our website or something, and I will reach out to music therapists nearby and try to help you find somebody. I've done that across state lines. I was able to find a music therapist for somebody in Knoxville, Tennessee last year on a total offhanded conversation about a mental health need that they were trying to address. And I was able to connect them with a wonderful music therapist in Knoxville, Erica Carr, and they went to work, you know? So
Outstanding.
yes, there's
I
great
will put
referrals.
yeah, I'll put the websites for the Music Therapy
Mhm.
Association of Georgia and the AMTA in the comments or some, I don't know, I'll get my mass comm student to
We'll
do it,
get
but
there. It's musictherapy.org, man. That's the best place to find details on what we do. Hmm.
all right, so but yes, that will be useful because, one of the things I recommend, and I did it based on your creative expressions things,
Hmm.
there might be opportunities in the community for people who might not uphold the musical product that we want to put out with our ensembles, but they're still, we still want them to be able to make music to the extent that they can.
Right.
We just aren't set up for that. And so, sometimes we can accommodate and sometimes we can't, but
Hmm.
we can make use of our resources and our peers in music therapy, I think. So,
Absolutely.
I
And
mean,
there's always another concert date, It's going to be
yeah.
the week after your normal, awesome, massive symphonic band performance.
Hmm.
The following week, you can have a really cool blended, mixed up group of wonderful musicians who are making some fun, great pops music or something, and go for it, you know? Just
And
have to be willing to open the schedules.
I find United Sound is a wonderful model for that, and they advocate just that thing where you might have one piece on the performance or a separate performance for the
Mhm.
United Sound students. And we could do the same thing. I find that we don't have United Sound so much in our area, and I think
Mhm.
it's because we have music therapy, and y'all are all doing the same thing.
Mhm.
So, but having said that, tell us about your creative expressions concerts
Oh,
and
sure.
how they came about.
This super cool creative
They
expressions concerts. I totally ripped that in my bio from I sent one to our music therapy technic, which I'm joining, which is a collaboration of music therapists across the nation who are trying to figure out how to use music tech to do what I do
Mhm.
in many ways. But yes, we Creative Expressions has been around for 24 years at Georgia College and State University. It's a partnership between the LEC and GCSU that started with Dr. Chesley Mercado
Mhm.
and has grown since. But it's a melding of musicians from the LEC and music therapy students from Georgia College. They get together, they learn instruments together, they learn songs together for 2 performances per year, one in the fall, one in the spring. They're thematically wide-ranging concerts. I did an 8 concert series, I believe, over the past couple of years, all related to our community, our local community's needs in trans and post-COVID um, sort of societal changes and what we needed to work with our audience on. And so it was community music therapy, and that our performers and our students worked together to do concerts that met the needs of our community and
Of
addressed their
course.
feelings and
Yeah,
senses.
just multi-levels.
Yes, and it's cool to see the posters kind of tell the story on our wall in our clinic. Um,
Mhm.
but we do these concerts. Right now we're working on a Disney show because they've been asking for years, and I finally was like, fine, we'll do a Disney show. And our performers are so excited to be bringing that kind of material to the table. Our concert, our next one is November 21st. It's right around the corner, like next month. And so folks are gearing up with multiple songs that they're working through, different instrumentation. We've got 8 performance groups right now. And each of those performance groups is going to participate in the concert by providing 2 selections. And so there will be 16 total selections across 8 performance groups. It's a pretty long night, about 2.5 hours, sometimes up to 3. And there's often dramatic elements to it. There's some flair involved for sure. We include a lot of audiovisual reinforcements and things to tell the story of what these groups do as they prepare, so that people see the work that goes into their product. The products are often excellent because our performers have been doing this for a very long time, and they have high expectations for themselves. And so they'll work with students who I was actually speaking with my intern, Soyun, about this today. We've got students who are freshmen, first semester students who have no idea what this even looks like. And they're paired up with individuals from the center who've been in this program for 24 years. And those individuals are helping the students understand how music therapy works in a community setting. So it's beautiful back and forth between the different performance aspects and people. And it makes a wonderful, well-balanced product. So when it comes down to those performances, they're all sold out. And I say that they're free concerts, but we run out of chairs very quickly. It's a standing room only kind of thing where we're at, and they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful.
I love the layers of intricacy where everyone has needs and everyone's needs are met as effectively as we can.
Oh yes, and some of those needs are I mean, they're varied. They're so varied. Developmental disabilities are across the board, and so you've got a lot of different personalities and different skill sets, different ability levels, and our groups meet those needs. So I mentioned we had 8 groups. They center around 8 different themes or expressions. So some folks like to use sign language. We have a group that does sign language. That's their whole thing. We've got a group that does adaptive, unique, or custom instruments. I've made one for one of these people, these wonderful musicians. You'll get a chance to come see him, my friend Sean. And we make music together, and he's got another friend who's got a similar set of circumstances, and she uses traditional instruments and is learning how to play violin and learning how to play guitars. She's got the most wicked electric guitar I've ever seen. It's this gorgeous, like deep blue Fender. It's amazing. But then we've got other groups that play hand drums. We've got other groups that use hand bells or xylophones. And we've got more groups that do dance, because music production isn't the only artistic expression we have. So we have folks that come in and dance and do numbers like that. It is a wide-reaching and wonderful group. We just started a new group. One of those 8 is our ukuleles. We call them it's Ohana ukulele, which is and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So new connections and lots of varied performance mediums produces a well-balanced and excellent concert. So we appreciate how we get to perform those.
Well, and let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about Sean's, you call it the Makey, yeah?
Well, it was. Makey is actually a registered trademark product.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't remember which company owns it now, but it used to be another one. They got bought out, and it was an interesting product. It was a STEM tool that was used for understanding electrical connectivity and how signals are processed from one thing to another. And so the Makey was the heart of how he made music when I met Sean. And it was pretty simple. It sat in a box on a table, and it had a ground wire connected to Sean, and he had this sort of metal wrapped popsicle stick that kind of attached to his arm, and he would take that and he would touch it to metal clamps on the tabletop, and those metal clamps were wired to the Makey. When that electrical loop closed, it produced a signal, and then on the web app for Makey, it was connected to like a sort of a xylophone piano thing, but it sounded like a squawk. So when he would play a note, it would go, oh man, it was a sound. And Sean appreciated being able to make music that way, because he could do it, but it took 15 minutes to set it up every time you had to change something. And he kind of didn't like the sound. It's not
Well,
what he
sure.
wanted to produce.
I
And I
remember
asked him that.
being specific about his sound.
Yes,
He,
I was sitting in class. Actually, he came because he comes to Georgia College and presents to music therapy students
hmm
about his whole package, his total package as a musician, as a human, and his life
yeah.
story. And in that, he said, yeah, I really wish it sounded like an organ. And that
hmm
struck me because I was in my master's program going, well, how hard could that be to make an organ sound come out of something like that? Well, as it turns out, 2.5 years of research work and development later,
Yeah.
it was a little hard.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah, we
remember
got there.
last year you were going to put a bigger power button so that he could turn it on and off himself.
Yes. Yeah, and that's it's a simple thing, right? It seems like a very simple thing to add, but it's more complicated than you think because that
Sure.
power button is now a backlit green LED because it's the color he wanted, and it's an arcade button, and we're still not quite through figuring out how to get it wired in. But that table is now, there is no makey in it at all. By the time we've gotten to where we are now, I've completely learned how to write in Arduino code, and which is a very simple code but a very efficient code. So I've been able to build a machine that can produce music within his reach, the way he wants to make it,
hmm
and that includes functions that I never thought I'd be able to produce, like Bluetooth connectivity and battery powered things run off of cell phone batteries.
Sure.
Like, so yeah, he's got an instrument he can take with him
Yeah.
anywhere he wants to go wirelessly, and it'll run for days upon days upon days between
That's
charges.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. Sean has a more pronounced kind of claw than I do.
hmm
And whereas I can spread mine out and use it, he
hmm
cannot. So he has to be able to play what he can play with kind of a fisted hand.
hmm
And
And it
so,
has to be something within reach.
yeah, he wouldn't be able to play a traditional instrument in a traditional classroom. So, do you know, was he able to play in music classes when he was in school, or his music life started when he
Ooh.
was in therapy?
I couldn't tell you about his center days without going beyond what I'm probably allowed to share.
Uh-huh.
I don't really know, but you know what? If he ends up being a guest on your podcast, he could tell you. So
Yeah,
I definitely recommend you reach out. But I do
yeah,
know
I
for
think he will.
certain that as he worked with us at the LAC, he's grown leaps and bounds in how he's produced music. He has experienced traditional instruments in the past, and he's played some of them in some ways as they could be adapted
hmm
to meet his needs, but none of them could quite meet what he wanted to do to grow as a professional musician. So and somebody who can now record music
Yeah,
and get it out there for the masses, like he's now come into something that really works to support those objectives in his life.
that's
hmm
yeah, I'm really excited, and I hope that he will come on here because a lot of people, when they're dealing with nonverbal people, think that they don't have anything to say.
hmm
And, you
Oh,
know,
they would be wrong.
yes, and yeah, that all we need is a means to get it from
hmm
here to here, and then we have plenty to say.
hmm
So I think that it would be amazing for him to share his experiences. And, like I said, with both him and Sharonica, I kind of want to know what their opportunities were in school because as a music teacher, when, people like me or like them walk into your classroom and you're looking at, instruments that were invented 3, 4, 500 years ago,
hmm
you know, the choices seem very limited.
Well, and they really are. And it's an unfortunate reality, but you can see this if you go shopping anywhere for adapted musical instruments. The price goes
Yeah,
to a phenomenally high number for very simple functions,
yeah.
which is really the primary reason I made what I made for Sean, because he needed something, but he didn't need to pay thousands and thousands of dollars.
hmm
Because come on, folks, we're not all self-made millionaires, and if we were, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're trying to figure this out, right?
I
So
had,
in order, I'm sorry.
yeah, so I had that issue today. Somebody reached out to me about the one-handed clarinet issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it is rather expensive because, Peter actually designed the instrument and he machines each part and builds them to order. So
Yeah,
it's
it's an
not that,
incredible
yeah,
process.
that one's not unnecessarily expensive. That's just what
Mm-hmm.
it costs
Oh,
to
I
do.
know. My
Yeah.
my use case is I had a guy who wanted to play percussion,
hmm
um, and the answer for an adapted instrument that the center actually owns, and I use it when I walk people through and show them what I'm talking about. It's a blow molded plastic frame with essentially a some kind of a wheel inside and a stick that sticks up on top. And when you press a button, it flings that stick around in circles and hits a tambourine. It just
Uh-huh.
goes ting, 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 until you let go of the button. And that thing was hundreds and hundreds of
Yeah.
dollars. And the guy that played it hated it. He
Yeah.
hated it. And he would, I don't know if sarcasm is a universal language or not, but when he
Oh,
would play that
sure.
instrument, he played it sarcastically and stared you down. I was like, man, that guy. And I said it. I said, I think he hates playing this thing. And he affirmed it for
Mm-hmm.
me. And I was like, well, there you go. Um, that lack of creativity was the piece that was missing. The ability to make music at whatever your level is, we got to meet those needs. And some
Yeah.
people, that instrument is for them, but
Yeah.
not for everybody. And if
Yeah.
somebody exceeds that level and needs something more specific, we have a really a moral obligation to try to figure out how to meet those needs. I
And
have that moral imperative. But I think that's more of like a life's passion thing.
well, and
It.
that's what I'm trying to do is, get people who want to do it with the people who can do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because, like you said, as a music teacher, it's not that we don't want to do it. It's just that we don't know, we don't
Yeah.
know what we don't know. We don't have resources. Sometimes we don't have training. And so that's why, actually the next few guests on my, actually on this podcast
Hmm.
are music therapists and music therapy adjacent
Okay.
because I think there's a lot that our music therapy peers can help us do that we aren't trained as much as they are or as you are.
Well, it's specialized, right? In the same way that if I run into a situation when it comes to teaching adapted lessons or something, there's a skill cap because I don't have advanced training in a lot of things that some of these masters of music education folks have. Like you guys really have some astounding knowledge in how to truly convey what needs to be conveyed for people to learn. And I respect the heck out of that because in my world, I know how much work I've had to put into learning what I know. And I know that on the other side of that fence is another person who really gets it from that perspective and those skill sets. So we got to
Yes.
work together, you know?
Yeah. And that's the goal, yeah. So, yeah, sorry, I do have another meeting. Do you have
Too.
anything else that's very important that you'd like to share before we go?
Um, well, I think we pretty much hit every part of the hit parade for me. I will say there are precious few music therapists in the world compared to how many I think we're going to have in the next 10 to 20 years. The
Sure,
field is not as old as you would think, but it has been around functionally as long as communication has.
sure.
People have been using music to make a difference for a very long time in people's lives, and it goes back into the annals of history. If you, and I'm speaking to your listeners, of course,
Sure.
if you have a need and you need support figuring it out, go talk to one of my people. We get it. We're very good at helping you identify what you need to do to grow and to meet your goals. Don't feel disabled by anything. If you lack an ability or a skill or a capability, that doesn't mean that you're not able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. You just got to find the people that love you enough to figure out how to help you get there. And you're going to find that in music educators. You're going to find that in music therapists. You're going to find that in your musical community because that's what we love to do. We love to see people go from wherever they are today through an amazing musical experience and to achieve something else. Um, from our performances all the way down to our therapy sessions to our classrooms with our band directors who are beating their batons against the music stands saying, hey, wake up, kiddo. We're
Yes.
all trying to accomplish that great mission to uplift and build up our community. And I hope that you find that in these people in your life.
Thank you so much. And this brings us to the end of our episode. Thanks to Mr. Jay Warren for joining us to discuss community-based music therapy opportunities. We hope you feel inspired, equipped, and ready to work with the disabled musicians in your community. If you learned something here, please like and subscribe to our show and return on our next episode featuring Jay Wucher, a dear friend and retired band director and fine arts coordinator. Until then, this is Dr. Tina Holmes Davis reminding you that small efforts create meaningful results.